In any relationship, true transformation only occurs when we stop, when we no longer try too hard, no longer tirelessly pursue or sacrifice parts of our own value just to receive a fleeting attention. It is that moment of stillness that opens up a space wide enough for us to see everything clearly, to understand that the feeling of peace does not lie in the gaze or recognition of others. It lies in the ability to let go gently and peacefully, as if returning to the heart the right to rest after days of exhaustion from trying to be the chosen one. Silence does not need to compete for attention, but in a natural and almost instinctive way, it becomes the most prominent thing. It does not try to prove its worth, nor does it seek to convince anyone of its importance. It simply exists quietly as it should. And it is in that presence that others begin to feel the void that your presence once filled. This silence is not resignation or acceptance, nor does it carry any bitterness. It is a deliberate choice, not expressing anger, not a performance to draw anyone's attention. It is simply a gentle yet firm retreat, a state of peace, discreet and calm, where you allow everything to reveal itself without the need for any further explanation. When a person suddenly disappears from life without leaving any signs, their silence becomes a mirror revealing uncomfortable truths. In that unexpected void, the mind begins to panic, pulling itself into cycles of reminiscence weighed down by regret, as if trying to reclaim something that has slipped away. An emotional storm rises, not loud but persistent, swirling within. And it is this silence, seemingly invisible, that forces one to slow down, listen, and confront the reflections that have long been avoided. Stoic philosophy reminds us that stillness is not a state of resignation or helplessness, but a form of action guided by disciplined restraint. In that stillness, we find a clear space to see ourselves, to understand what should be kept and what should be let go. It is through that clarity that we can be calm and wise enough to refuse relationships that only demand from us without providing balance or deserving reciprocity. And when we choose to step away from such things, it is not the retreat of a failure, but the withdrawal of someone who understands themselves, knows their worth, and is wise enough to protect it. Most people are so accustomed to noise that they depend on it. But in reality, noise is not the connection they think it is. It is merely a layer of chaos that conceals the emptiness within. Only when absence appears, when the familiar noise fades away, do the imbalances become apparent. And it is at that moment that those who once benefited from your excessive giving are forced to confront a silence they have never been prepared to face. A silence that exposes the things they have always avoided. Self-respect begins with knowing when to step back, especially when you realize you are pursuing people who only appear when they fear losing you. The moment you choose to take a step back, you are not being weak. You are affirming your own worth. The discomfort or confusion they display does not stem from missing you, but from suddenly losing the power they once held when you were still focused on them. And when you no longer allow others to control your emotions or presence, you are giving yourself the respect that you have always deserved. When we stop searching, a silent yet powerful transformation begins to take place. It is in that moment that silence suddenly becomes the first genuine conversation each person can have with themselves. No longer chasing the gaze or recognition of others, we listen to the inner voice that had previously been overshadowed by noise and the relentless effort to be understood. The stillness opens up a space where the emotional energy, which had been depleted by the desire for acknowledgement, starts to return. It gently slows down, then gradually gathers within us, as if restoring the strength that had long been lost. And it is also in that stillness that we regain control, not to hold or manipulate others, but to return to ourselves, to what belongs to us, and to the peace we once forgot. True value only begins to reveal itself when we stop giving so easily, when we are calm enough not to rush into carrying the emotions of others whenever they are unsteady. It is the moment we allow them to face their own energy, to handle what belongs to them without constantly relying on the familiar support from us. Because the connection has never been one-sided as they think. It is just that we have always appeared at the right moment, silently bearing the emotional burdens they do not recognize. And when we stop doing that, not to create distance, but to restore the balance that should exist in any relationship, our value, and that of the connection itself, can truly be seen. The greatest influence sometimes lies not in strong affirmations, but emerges from quiet restraint. It is when we are not easily provoked, not in a hurry to clarify everything, and not striving to be chosen by others. Instead, we calmly choose ourselves, selecting our own values and direction. In a world that always reacts immediately and easily exposes excessive emotions, calmness becomes a special allure, silent yet persistent, drawing attention even when we are not trying to impress. Silence is not the end of connection, but the starting point for clarity. In that moment, we no longer strive to be heard, no longer chase after the noise of others, but begin to turn inward to listen to ourselves. This silence is not a means to punish or hurt anyone, but a gentle layer of protection for inner peace. When we allow ourselves to stand still, we truly recognize what is happening within and what we truly need. Silence, therefore, becomes the space that helps us see more clearly, understand more deeply, and live more fully with ourselves. Nothing shakes a person more profoundly than the moment they realize they have lost access to you. Not because you left, but because you have finally found your way back to yourself. Attachment is inherently a quiet thing, growing in familiar actions and stable presence that sometimes even we do not recognize. It silently becomes a given. Something one assumes will always be there. Only when it disappears does the void resonate loudly enough to force one to understand that what seemed ordinary is actually the most precious thing. Most of us do not realize that others have become accustomed to our presence until one day it disappears and that absence becomes apparent. The loyalty and quiet support we provide are often taken for granted, existing silently without being acknowledged. Yet it is this invisibility that they rely on the most. Ironically, what people depend on deeply is often undervalued, and only when it no longer belongs to them do they truly appreciate its real worth. When you stop giving, the void that was once filled with your care gradually becomes apparent, silently growing into a realization that no one noticed before. It is this absence that causes others to start seeking things they never had to look for, simply because you used to bring them to them without them having to make an effort. And then they come back, not because they miss you, but because they miss the feeling of themselves during the days when you cared for them, remembering the comfort and warmth they once received without having to pay a price. When you always keep your heart open, they believe they can turn to you at any time, trusting that your kindness is limitless and your presence will always be there, unconditionally, without demands. But as soon as you take a step back, that trust immediately wavers, then shatters into overlapping doubts. And in the void that opens up, they leave you with only unanswered questions, prolonged silences, as if you no longer understand why kindness can be taken for granted in such a way. People often confuse nostalgia with longing, inadvertently viewing them as a single emotion. However, what they yearn for is not necessarily the specific person who once passed through their lives, but rather the gentle feeling of being desired by you, being seen by you as something natural that they can trust. They seek the emotional safety that you created, which warmed them in ways they didn't even realize until it was lost. And deeper still, what they truly crave is the invisible thread that once connected everything together. making every moment meaningful, even though they had never fully been aware of its existence before. The energy within you has changed, gently yet decisively, like a new current unfolding. You no longer tirelessly seek understanding from the outside, nor do you allow your worth to hang in the balance of others' nods or acknowledgments. The inner stillness gradually becomes your anchor, helping you see more clearly who you are without needing any mirror to reflect. And from that peace, you realize that genuine connection never requires you to shrink, to fade, or to disappear just to be seen by someone. You can fully exist, be yourself, and the right things will naturally come to you, gently and at the right time. When you no longer easily allow others to enter your world, they begin to realize the rare value of that access. They remember how your quiet presence made them feel safe, as if just having you there calmed all the chaos within them. They recall how your voice once soothed their wobbly days, gentle yet deep enough to ease their minds. And above all, they remember the faith you placed in them, a belief that helped them rediscover themselves, that made them dare to think they could be stronger, better, more deserving. Only when that door closes do they understand that your access was never a given, but a precious gift they had once inadvertently taken for granted. Once a bond is damaged, it will never return to its original shape. It cannot be pieced together in the old way. It can only move in one of two directions, either becoming deeper through mutual growth and development, or gradually fading away, leaving only a blurred patch of memory. Therefore, those who return hoping to find what once existed often receive only silence, as a reminder that the old version of you is no longer present. The pursuit of someone initially carries the beauty of effort and sincerity, but beneath that surface lies an unavoidable message, that you are seeking in them what you have yet to find within yourself. When this realization occurs, the balance between the two individuals immediately shifts. The equality that is essential in a relationship gradually gives way to a sense of imbalance, where one person unconsciously stands lower, while the other becomes the support that you should have sought from within. And in that moment, the initial nobility loses its meaning and transforms into a trade-off that disrupts the balance necessary for two souls to fully connect. In the relentless efforts to prove your worth, you inadvertently diminish yourself. You trade your self-respect just to maintain the interest of others, even though it gradually erodes your self-esteem. You respond too quickly to things that do not deserve the time and energy you invest, as if just a moment's hesitation would cause you to lose something important. You convince yourself that disrespectful behaviors towards your presence are still acceptable, simply because you fear losing some fragile connection. And then, you continue to enter spaces where your presence is never acknowledged, leaving behind a hollow feeling that you are always the one, trying harder than necessary. We often yearn for the gaze of others as a way to prove our worth, hoping that with just a little more effort, by doing a bit more, we will be chosen in a way clear enough to soothe our hidden doubts about ourselves. However, the more we tirelessly seek what should come naturally, the more we fade away, as if the effort to prove ourselves only makes us appear more insignificant in the eyes of those we wish to be seen by. The more you try, the more you feel the scales tipping in your favor, as if every effort only pushes you further into imbalance. You inadvertently teach them to believe that your time is always available, that all boundaries can be stretched, that your energy holds little value and doesn't need to be preserved. This distortion creeps inside you at some point, becoming an intrinsic part before shaping the way the two of you treat each other. Then you find yourself exhausted, feeling the simmering resentment rise, yet still clinging to the fragile hope that just a little more effort will make everything better.